Hey guys, GhazzyTV here with another YouTube video. Today I want to talk about something that's generally in the community gone completely under the radar, and in my opinion is an insane change in the patch notes that I don't think most people have realized how strong it is, and that is the belt called Darkness Enthroned, which seems to be one of the absolute best low-budget kind of belts you could ever use in the game at the moment. And I will actually be using it in my high-budget build as well, because it is arguably that good, especially for minion builds where you can get so much damage out of it. It's absolutely disgusting, and you can sort your details in your build, such as attributes or resistances, in a very, very effective way. So, for those of you who don't know what happened on the patch notes, basically, the result on Darkness Enthroned was that increased effect on Exile Jewels went from 50% up to 75%, which doesn't seem to be a lot, but that's a 50% buff. Existing items can be updated to these new values using a Divine Orb. So what does this mean? This means that the jewels that you put inside your Darkness Enthroned belt gets a 50% increase effectiveness. But with the patch notes, it is now giving 75% increase of effectiveness. So to basically translate this to what it actually means in terms of how broken this actually is, in my opinion, if you get a Stygian Vise belt, the one with one socket, with a decent life roll, talking about, let's say about 80 HP, from a normal Stygian Vise with good amount of HP, and then you put a cheap jewel with life on, let's say you have 30 HP. That means 30 on that's 110 HP. That's a cheap jewel with a very good rolled life on a Stygian Vise, 110 HP. Now if you use two jewels with 30 HP each in a Darkness Enthroned, that's 60 HP, which is then augmented by 1.75. That's about the same HP. And the belt doesn't cost you as much as a life rolled Stygian Vise with that amount of HP. You only buy two cheap jewels to get that HP. So that's just the life. However, another detail is that if you get resistances on something like a Stygian Vise, about 80 resistances on top of having that life, we're talking about 80 HP or 110 HP with, let's say, 80 resistances. That's suddenly starting to be a little bit more pricey. Not so much during Harvest League because of the crafting, but that also translates to the Darkness Enthroned in terms of damage from minion builds. So if you get a double rest, like rest to cold and lightning, for example, that's about 10 to 12%. So let's say that's 11% for two resistances. So that's 2. And you have, alright, that's plus 2. 11 times 2. That's a jewel with 22% resistances. Get 2 of these, that's times 2. That's 44. Which is multiplied by 1.75 from Darkness Enthroned. That means that with a mediocre resistance roll on your jewel, you suddenly have about the same resistance as you would get from that really good rolled Stygian Vise belt. However, the thing that makes this so good is actually the fact that Darkness Enthroned scales the effect of Socket the Jewels. Stygian Vise belt does not give minion builds any sort of damage. There are some damage modes Stygian Vise can roll, and if you get a high life with resistance and damage on a Stygian Vise, that's very, very expensive. However, getting a decent jewel with mediocre rolls for these things, especially with Harvest Craft being available, you can get jewels like this, for example, that gives you 35 HP, minion damage when you use a minion skill recently. You can use the Harvest Craft to get a a double rest or a rest roll. On top of that, you can also augment a physical roll, which will always give minions deals additional physical damage. So if you look at this type of jewel that I have on this one, which cost me like 20 chaos, I think, 15 chaos to get the life and minion damage. And then I just used the harvest to get the rest and the physical roll on it. This jewel alone is giving me 61 HP. It's also giving me 18 times 1.75 damage when I use the minion skill. That's 31 damage instead of the 18. It's also giving me a grand total of 38% resistances rather than the 24. And it's also giving me 12 to 16 divided by 2. That's 14 average physical hits to my minions, multiplied by 1.75. And that's 24 extra physical damage per hit to my minions. That's just from one jewel. Now you get 2 of these. So if you look at this combination of jewels, I got 35 plus 33 HP. Multiplied by 1.75. That's 119 life from my belt that cost me 1 Alcorb. Resistances, there's 11 and there's 12. So 12 plus 11 times 2, which is 22. So 22, that's a 46% resistance from these 2 jewels. multiplied by the scaling, that's 80 resistances on 119 HP. Already a Stygian Vise would be a lot more expensive than having this combination. And on top of that, I have the physical damage. Let's see if I can get this correctly. No, it was 14 plus 9 plus 15 divided by 2 plus 14. So that is 26 multiplied by 1.75. They also together give me 45 extra physical damage to the minions' damage because they're inside a belt that scales them by 1.75. This is one of the most effective ways to actually scale extra damage from your jewels, for minions specifically. So for minion builds, I don't see why I would ever choose to go with anything else. Even for CI builds, you can get a little bit more energy shield over jewels with ES when it comes to crystal belts and whatnot, but again, those are a lot more expensive. Instead, I can invest that currency to better jewels, where I can design to get a lot more damage out of with the same amount of defense. And it also helps you navigate to sort your resistances or sort your attributes for that matter. If you're low on dexterity, for example, which is a common issue on some of the builds, you can get a lot of dexterity, and that scale 1.75 times that, because they're sitting in your Darkness Enthroned, that costs you less than a Chaos Orb to purchase. And you get your jewels instead, which you can basically design the way you want, and they're much more accessible in the community. And it's just absolutely insane of how much damage you can get for a minion build using Darkness Enthroned after the patch notes. And it's completely gone under the radar. I don't understand why people haven't reacted to this sooner. I myself didn't react to it at all. I was told about it a few days ago, and then when I did the calculations on it, I don't see why I would ever use anything but this. And these jewels, it's piece easy to craft. I bought them for 15C each with the life and minion damage, with minion damage when you use a minion skill, and the rest you can just do on the harvest craft if you want to. And that's how it is. And the easy craft for this is basically the only prefix physical modifier is the minion deals extra physical damage. So what you want to do before you augment the belt like this, or sorry, jewel, is to make sure that all suffixes are covered. So in this case, you want the minion damage when you use a minion skill recently, and you want to make sure that you get that suffix with some sort of elemental modifier. So if you augment lightning, fire, or cold, and you get a prefix, you just do the craft that removes that element and replaces it with a new one till you get a res. And if you get a double res or a single res, doesn't really matter. You just rinse, repeat the process with the harvest craft, and you'll get a jewel like this very easy. And with the latest patch that kicked in today or earlier today, with the seed crafting, with the rarer mods being more available, this is very easy to craft, and you don't have to pay much to get to this point. And it's absolutely disgustingly easy, and you get so much out of it. I'm not sure if I would argue for this to be super broken for other than minion builds, but for minion builds, I don't see why I would use anything but Darkness Enthroned. I'd pay an Alp or maybe a Chaos for the belt, unless I drop them because they're so common, and then just put my effort into the jewels, which will help me fill out the gaps on dexterity, fill out the gaps on resistances, and it's just absolutely disgusting. But that's my take on the Darkness Enthroned, and I believe it's gone on the radar, so I just want to share that information with you guys. And that's about it. Hit the like button for more content, and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below what you guys feel about the belt, if you think it's too good nowadays, or if it's in a good balanced state, because I think it can be very heavily abused by specifically minion builds, but it can be very good in low budget states for pretty much any other build as well. Anyways, till next time, boys, stay safe and keep rocking.